Right, so we're live here on the YouTubes. I'd like to welcome you guys back. How's it going, Mark?
It's going, man. If I knew where I lived, I'd run away from home.
Well,
I'm trying a new microphone setup right now because I noticed when I was editing the podcast that was released this morning, there were a few sections of it where it sounded like maybe I was way back over here away from the microphone and I could barely hear myself. So I'm trying to be a little bit closer to it and try not to yell.
it's much more intimate. I have my microphone set to the side on an angle because if I put it in front of me, it's just a little uncomfortable but it's enough so that you get a relatively close proximity sound to it, you know.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm in a tin can, and I don't want to sound like I'm in the next room. So here's hoping this is a happy medium.
So this episode was not strategically but randomly called Peace Frog, and somebody did guess it out there. The Doors, Harneal Media. That's Steve Nealon at Harneal Media said The Doors.
Yep.
Mark Lindsay said Peace Frog. That's what that's a Cat Stevens tune, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was making a joke because Cat Stevens had that song Peace Train.
Okay.
So I just kind of threw that in there just as a joke to see who would bite.
Well, we'd like to welcome everybody, and I believe we have, let's see, Harju. That's Daniel Harju at the Country Bed Shop. We have Harneal Media, Steve Nealon. I see Frankie CNC and Woodworking is there, as well as What If I Could. John, what's going on? And, well, I'll just read a couple of the lyrics as I wanted to do that. I love the album, Morrison Hotel.
Yeah.
And I just do, you know. But the song is, there's blood in the streets. It's up to my ankles. And then he keeps layering with his second vocals, blood in the streets up to my knees, blood in the streets in the town of Chicago, blood on the rise, and it's following me. Mm-hmm. Then he changes into, you know, a bunch of things like Indians scattered on Dawn's highway bleeding, you know. And this song, if you've never heard of it and you listen to those lyrics, you would think that, boy, that's quite the depressing and apocalyptic song. But if you hear the wah-wah sound, how it starts, it's magic. It's rock and roll magic, in my opinion.
Do you know the a little bit of the story behind the song?
I did and forgot about it a long time because I've read like 4 of their. It's been a long time, but I've read 4 of their biographies.
Yeah.
And so it was mentioned in there and I remember, but I don't remember the specifics.
Well, basically the music was all written and recorded first. And Morrison added lyrics to it later on. And basically it was just a collection of various lines from some poems he had written. You know?
Very cool.
You were talking about the Indians scattered on Dawn's highway bleeding.
Yes. That I remember.
Well, he had written a poem that he called, I want to say it was something like Newborn Awakening or something like that. But it was basically, he was recalling an event that happened when he was really young.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically a truckload of Indian workers had hit a car, or a car had hit them or something like that. It was an automobile accident. But he said that there were Indian people scattered all over the highway bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And the car he was riding in, everybody, you know, the cars all over the place just stopped to try to help and everything. And that's where that line came from.
Well, in one interview from that exact moment, he said that, you know, in his tripped out way, I don't know what happened, but as we were driving, I was looking and I believe that one of those Indian souls jumped into mine. And then his whole shamanistic side of his, you know, writing and music. So he liked to create legends and themes and use poetry to weld it all together,
Mhm.
which was pretty cool. But yeah, Blood on the Streets, because, well, there's been a lot on the streets lately. So, but that's we're you know, if it happens naturally, we'll talk about it. But I did want to mention a couple of interesting, strange, bizarre facts about America
Okay.
and see what you think.
Okay.
You might not know them.
Okay. Now let me ask you here: is it are we getting into the paranormal?
We are not. These are
Okay.
actual historic or not commonly known
Oh, okay.
facts.
Okay.
So
It's
there's
just
no.
it's just the look that you gave me when you said that. I was like, oh, here we go. Are we getting paranormal or what?
So, well, the first fact that I want to mention is that these are facts here. If you have a $10 bill
Okay.
and no debt, you are wealthier than 15% of all American citizens. What do you think about that?
I think that's pretty easy to do when you stop and think about it, because you and I have talked about this before. We both know people who make, less than, 25,000 a year, who are in credit card debt up to their eyeballs. And it's a real shame. So if you figure, even if you're not, struggling, if you've got a mortgage and you've got a credit card and you've got a car payment, you're in debt.
Very
We
easy.
went for many, many years being 100% debt free. We had no mortgage, we had no car payments, everything was paid for. And it was great to a point. But then again, when we went to go buy this house, we had to go get credit cards to establish a credit history, because while we had no debt, we didn't owe anybody anything other than our monthly utilities. We had no credit as well because we hadn't bought anything on credit. Everything was cash.
Yeah.
So, it's a double-sided coin. So to be out of debt without a $10 bill in your pocket, I would say that you're doing better than probably, than quite a few folks.
Yeah. It's
So
just one of those funny things, right?
yeah, that's actually fairly easy, because I mean, anybody who is a homeowner, folks who own their home outright with no mortgage at all, are a pretty rare commodity.
Yeah.
I mean, they're out there, but they're not the majority of folks. Most folks have a mortgage that they're paying on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's just part of life. If not, people couldn't really own much now, could they?
Yeah.
Because everything costs so much, you'd have to build up to.
right.
I remember being able to buy on layaway.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess that you could still do that.
But there are certain times a year Wally World does it, around Christmas or what have you, but they don't do it very often. You had layaway. Do you remember Christmas Club bank accounts?
No, I don't.
It was a savings account that you put money into every month. And if you didn't take it out until, I think it was December 1st, if you didn't take any money out, you got a higher interest rate. And it was there to have people save up money to buy Christmas presents. So you got a little bit higher interest rate by putting it in this one special account and not touching it until December 1st or 15th or whatever. But that and layaway were how most people did Christmas. And if you stop and think about it, the whole layaway thing was actually pretty good, because that was also storage. It was offsite storage. You could, even if you had the money to go down and buy things, you could take all your items up to the layaway counter, put them on layaway, and, just pay it all off except for a $10 balance. And then a few days before Christmas, you could go pay that off, get your stuff, take it home, wrap it up, put it under the tree. And, but yeah, I bought my first computer on layaway. I bought a whole bunch of various things off of layaway.
Let's go to Oh, go ahead.
But the whole thing about saving up for something, that's how I was raised. If you
Yeah.
didn't have the money for it, you saved for it. You didn't go get a credit card. That was for business people who had to entertain clients or what have you, you know.
Yeah.
And or you just did without. I mean, and that's something that we refuse to do now. We just will not do without. We have to have the newest, biggest, best, whether we can afford it or not.
Yeah. I mean, my dad used to say that. I told you that the other day. He'd say, don't owe anybody anything. Don't
Mhm.
be in debt. If you can't afford it, don't have it.
Yep.
Just simply don't have it. Save up for it and then go. Put your pennies on the counter and then buy it. But other than that, don't sit there and owe. Within reason, right? Within reason. Because there's certain things, but like try to go in the direction of not owing.
Well, see, I'm cheap. I don't like paying all that interest. That's why I don't like credit cards, because I don't like paying 9% interest for socks or 19% interest on shoes, you know? And it gets me, the average. I'm watching commercials on television and I'm seeing this new GMC truck is only this much with 72-month financing. 72 months? That's 6 years. 6 years of paying interest on a vehicle. And the reason they'll finance it for 6 years is because if it was only 3 like it used to be, you wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So that's why you got people making $12 an hour driving $80,000 trucks, because they're paying for it for 6 years.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you know, um it's one of those things. I don't want to personally be, as much as possible indebted to anybody.
Yeah.
I really don't. Anyways, let's
Okay.
go to
Sorry.
this one. No. That was an interesting, look into that. Here's another one interesting about America. Kansas produces enough wheat in 1 year to feed everyone in the world for 2 weeks.
Have you been to Kansas?
I have not.
I believe that's true. But I wonder where they're putting the wheat, because there's a lot of corn there too. But I mean, they are some growing. You want to talk about agriculture? Head out to the plains. It's just like, wow. So
It
yeah,
goes
I
on
believe
forever
that.
and ever, huh?
Oh, forever. I mean, we drove through Kansas, and when we got out of Kansas City, Missouri, which is right on the border, Kansas City and Overland Park, we got out of there. The tallest thing we saw was a windmill. I mean, it's just perfectly flat. There is nothing between the Arctic Circle and the Gulf of Mexico, and nothing for any direction. The tallest thing we saw was a windmill.
Amazing. I mean, I'm kind of used to flat, you know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't like flat doesn't necessarily, it's when I see mountains and I'm like, oh wow. Because distance,
Yeah. See, I'm a West Coast kid, born and raised in this valley. Lived other places, but thinking about it, I've almost always had mountains on the horizon. Even when we lived in California, we were at the basis of mountains, a mountain range. When we lived in Nevada, we were surrounded by the Sierra. I mean, Lake Tahoe was 25 miles from the house. But when I got back to Oklahoma, that's flat.
Yeah. All right, let me move to this one. Did you know that 1 in 8 people in the U.S. has been employed by McDonald's?
With the number of McDonald's out there, somehow that doesn't surprise me. 1 in 8.
That was my first job at age 15.
That's one job I've never done. I've never worked fast food. I've never worked fast food. I've worked. Now, I was a busboy in a restaurant, and I was a dishwasher at a buffet, but I've never worked fast food.
It was crazy.
So, yeah.
In the short time I was there, I saw people get into fights with each other just fist fights in the McDonald's over stupid, organizational issues.
I want my nuggets.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of stuff. But I thought that's an interesting little thing. This one you probably know, but Russia sold Alaska to the U.S. for 2 cents per acre.
Yep. The Seward's Folly, it was called. They thought that, that he was absolutely nuts, but it was a great strategic move on his part without knowing it, actually. I didn't know it was that cheap, but when you figure how many acres in Alaska, 2 cents an acre, that's still a ton of money.
Here's this one. In the U.S., 40% of babies are born to unmarried women.
Yeah, that's a sad statistic. That I believe.
40%.
And that's a sad statistic.
And it says it wasn't always this way, but for 8 years in a row, a whopping 40% of all babies were born to unwed mothers. And that's a stark contrast to the 1940s, where it was just 3.8 of babies.
Right. Yeah, that was when we had a sense of shame.
And it didn't hit 10% until 1969.
Yep.
So it went obviously up from there.
Yep. Well, that was the beginnings of the liberation movement.
Yeah. Here's another one.
Okay.
1 in 3 Americans, I can attest to, is obese. 1 in 3 Americans.
I believe that as well, because we are spoiled. We're very spoiled. People, fast food was never meant to be a steady diet. There, I said it, and I'm glad.
No. See, but you're. I'm big boned. There's
right. How come they've never found a fat skeleton?
It's so true. But the excuse, right? Oh, he's hefty. He's just big boned.
No, there ain't no such thing. There has never once been a fat skeleton.
When you find one of those, it's gonna be great, because that'll serve all the excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So this one I kind of didn't know, but more people live in New York City than in 40 of the 50 states. I kind of didn't know that.
I don't know about that. Let's see what New York City's population is.
It's from the department. It's from the New York City Department of Planning.
Okay, New York City has 8.3 million people. All right.
As of July of 2015, it's 8.550405.
Okay. Well, this is 2018 numbers.
Okay.
So yeah. And I would, I don't know. I know it has almost double the population of the state of Oregon. I can say that for certain because we're right around 4 million. But about 40 of the 50 states, I don't know if it's that many.
Yeah. The quote is, more people live in New York City than in 40 of the 50 states. That we'll leave that one up to the researchers to see.
Okay.
Unless you want to investigate further.
No, I don't necessarily
believe that one.
I don't want to take away. Well, now that you know what, man, that may be absolutely right, because New York City's population is 8.3 million. And okay, no, it would be 38 states.
Okay.
Because 12 states have a bigger population. Okay. But still, wow, that's a ton of folks.
That is a ton of folks.
Man.
Okay, let's see here. All right. Oh, you're gonna like this one.
Uh-oh.
So Oregon is the fastest speaking state in the US, and Mississippi is the slowest?
I think that would depend on where you go in Oregon. I think that would be more prevalent up north because they're bigger cities up there. I mean, people are so laid back around here. Don't get me wrong, I can get going on a roll, but
Yeah.
people are so laid back down in this area. I could probably I had no idea about the fastest.
That's what it says there. And let me see where they're.
But Mississippi, I believe, because I think Steve is still answering a question I asked him last week.
The quote comes from Traveler, CN Traveler, which is a website. Oregon is the fastest speaking state in the U.S. New Yorkers talk the most. Now, who's surprised? And then it goes down a list of stuff. Well, with that said, yeah, I mean it's something. I mean we could look into it. But I'll just mention. Well, go ahead.
That's kind of an odd statistic too, because it's one of those I would never have thought of to even track. You know?
Yeah.
But
Mississippi is the slowest.
Mississippi being the slowest, I can see that entire region, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, because I mean, I talk about the pace of life here. It's very slow there. People are, I mean, you go to, I mean, if you go to some of the major cities, you know, Birmingham, Montgomery, or something like that, then yeah, the pace of life is fast.
Yeah.
But it's more relaxed. Everybody's like, okay, don't worry about it. We'll get there. And when they see, I'll see you in a minute. When they say, I'll see you in a minute, that could be like next Tuesday. You know, it's just.
Isn't it more like saying that same sentence? Isn't it more like, see, and everybody's on that? No,
it's just kind of laconic, laid back, no hurry. We're not in a rush. Everything's
so
all
from
right.
New York would look like they're bouncing off the walls over there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can tell city folks easily in small towns. You know, it's just it's real frenetic, and they're you can tell because they're used to competition that we're just not used to.
That's right.
You know, and got to get up front, got to get into the store, got to hurry up and get in front of this guy and grab that loaf of bread before he gets it. And it's just like, dude, there's 30 more right there on the same shelf. You know, this is not a contest.
Looking out the blinds of the cafeteria to your car in the parking lot, make sure nobody stole it.
Yeah, just kind of, you know, looking out the, just no, I'm parking right up here so I can keep an eye on the car. Dude,
all the entrances
care about your car.
Yeah, all entrances are you're keeping an eye out just in case of some sort of hijacking or robbery.
Well, the only bars on the windows around here that I can think of are at the county jail. So folks are just, you know, it's just laid back.
All right. So did you know this one?
Okay.
The word Pennsylvania is misspelled on the Liberty Bell.
I didn't know that.
Awesome.
I did not know that. I'm going to have to look at a picture of it, I guess.
It's from National Science. The National Science Foundation is the source. Thank goodness that they have sources on this site that I was looking at.
Yeah, really.
Let's see here.
So now I'm going to have to look for a big high-res image of the Liberty Bell.
It would take, check this out, it would take you more than 400 years to spend a night in all of Las Vegas's hotel rooms.
All of the rooms?
All of the rooms.
That I believe. I've seen the size of the hotels on the Strip. That I believe.
That's
I mean, it'd take you 10, 20 years to just do a couple of the hotels. So that I do believe. I mean, wow.
Amazing. So there's enough concrete in the Hoover Dam to build a 2-lane highway from San Francisco to New York City.
That I also believe. I mean, there is so much concrete in the Hoover Dam that it still hasn't fully cured yet.
Really?
Yeah. And it was built in the 30s.
That's an astonishing thing, dude. If that thing were to bust,
I don't think that's going to be a factor. I really don't. I think the canyon walls around it would crumble first. It is so many yards thick that well, put it to you this way, there's a 2-lane road and pedestrian sidewalks on each side of the 2-lane road at the very top of it with room to spare. Amazing. It is so many yards thick. I don't think that that's a concern.
So who do you think has the worst drivers in the nation?
Just my opinion, Washington State.
No, what city?
What city has the worst drivers? Oh, okay.
And you know what? To be fair, well, I'm not going to tell you the year, but let's say within the past 5 years.
Probably someplace where they don't do a lot of driving. So I'd probably say New York.
Well, that's a fair. It says here Boston.
Boston? Okay, another place where they don't do a heck of a lot of driving, relatively speaking. I mean, they do a lot, obviously, because there's a lot of people, but they also have good transit, I thought, anyway.
And how about the best drivers?
Man, this is just a total guess.
It's a tough one because there could be so many.
Let's see. Man, I don't know. I'm just gonna pull it something. Hey, Rocky, watch me pull an answer out of my hat. Indianapolis. I don't know. It could be anywhere.
Okay, so it was Kansas City.
Okay, not too far away. Kansas City, home to good drivers. I'm gonna have to visit it. Never been there. Well, yeah, I have two. When we went through Overland Park. Yeah. Okay. Kansas City, Missouri.
Right. Here's one for everyone. And Mark, and if Mark gets it first, and he's got the mic, so it's kind of like it's going to be a tough one, but
it's going to be a race.
What state were most American presidents born?
I know that one. Virginia, of course.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Do you have an assistant? Is Linda back? Does she have like 5 screens, multiple screens and keyboards and?
Well, I can't really say that because she has a desktop and a laptop sitting on her desk, but she's in another room at the other end of the house. She is in the chat, however.
Okay.
Because I can see that she said Oahu has the worst drivers. No, well, yeah. I don't know. It depends on where you're at in Oahu. Some of them don't drive worth a ding dong. But then again, that's hard saying because most of the people on the road in Oahu are tourists.
So 2 more.
Okay.
The Library of Congress contains approximately 838 miles of bookshelves, long enough to stretch from Houston to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That is an amazing fact. Just saying.
From Houston to Chicago.
Yeah. It has approximately 838 miles of bookshelves.
I mean, we got to keep it. We got to keep the documentation somewhere. I mean, I mean, all this digital stuff is great. It's excellent for what it is. But, as we have seen in the past, what do you do when the power goes out? I mean, do you remember when everybody freaked out when YouTube broke? I mean, you had folks just literally petrified that all their videos were gone. Yeah. I mean, people were petrified that their videos were just gone. And, I don't know, did anybody lose a channel over it? I don't think so. I think it was just their servers went down.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really opened people's eyes going, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. It was the end of the world.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that 800 miles, how would you, bookshelves, how would you like to be the dude that, does the cards for the Dewey Decimal System in the card file?
Oh, man.
Walking back with a drawer and drop them,
Yeah. I don't know if they've digitized. Mm-hmm. I know they've digitized a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. You can go on Library of Congress, whatever.gov or whatever. Uh-huh. But I don't know if they've done all of it or most of it or what that number is. But that's a fountain of information. I mean,
oh yeah, I don't know how many years it'll take to digitize it all, but I don't think that it's all digitized. I'm sure that they have things in there that they don't even know what they've got yet.
Yeah.
Because that was started so long ago that I'm sure the folks working there now know the highlights, but nobody could know everything that's in there, and it's just the digital stuff is so new, relatively speaking, that even for a relatively young country like America, the number of years it would take to scan every page of every document into a digital format, especially when the formats keep changing. I mean, they thought they were doing good when they were putting things on microfiche. Well, that's obsolete now.
I mean, but did they categorize?
Oh yeah.
So in other words, did they have an index?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I mean
they had indexes and what have you, but
I used it like a handful of times back in the day.
But you've got people who are now scanning books and scanning documents, or transferring things off of microfiche into a digital documents that have never used a microfiche reader, that they stopped using microfiche before these people were born.
Yeah.
So it would kind of sort of like us, it would be like us using punch cards or perforated tape to load a program into our computer. It's like, how do you do this?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, but we keep, dragging along the information for the ride, and good thing we do too, because we need it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm all for digitizing everything that we can get our hands on and making what we can available to the public, because, well, as you've seen yourself, I mean, in trying to track down people in your ancestry, those documents just haven't been digitized yet. We don't know if they ever will be in our lifetimes, because there's just so much. I mean, this is a relatively young country. We're only 230 some odd years old. Imagine like the UK, they have 1,000 years of history there. And then you go, some like Spain or Italy or something like that, where they were separate principalities and different dominions, and then all of a sudden brought together. There are things in regions of both of those countries that the central governments have no idea they even exist yet, let alone what they have. So
they have a lot of documentation. Don't get me wrong. Spain has documentation since the time of the Visigothic kings and Roman times.
Yeah.
So there's Roman scriptures and writings and protocols. So there is a lot. Like they literally have, and plus when they took over, the Andalus, the caliphates crumbled. Instead of Ferdinand, instead of destroying once they came into what was that? No, what was the city that we had talked about again in the south?
I can't remember.
That southern city, the last one.
I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember right now either. Whatever, Granada. When they came into Granada, as opposed to burning it all, as typically you would want to do because you're pissed and it's time to destroy, they didn't burn it. They kept it. And so that's a good thing. But just the same, the indexing problem, plus fires after the fact, and who knows during the time, because just because they didn't do the burning then at that precise moment, it's a big point in history because he decided not to burn the writings of antiquity because they had brought it over from Alexandria. All the Greek writing came through the Arabs into Europe. That's how Europe got the actual philosophers. It was through the Andalus people. But with that said, we don't know what could have gone up. Maybe if they would have kept track of all of it and have it, we could probably go down into Roman times.
Oh, sure. Or further back. But you brought up another interesting point in that think of the language differences. How many times did those regions change languages? You know, the languages we know today of these regions, I mean, it well into the 17 and early 1800s, most of the population of France didn't speak French. There were various local dialects. There was Flemish. There were Germanic languages. Spanish was spoken. Latin was spoken. I mean, when you think about the language changes over the years, I mean, just in the UK, going from Old English, which was basically Germanic, then you had Welsh, then the Scots Gaelic and the Irish Gaelic. The different languages that have been used, you've got to have somebody to be able to translate all of that. And
they had their scribes, so they did.
They did, but you've got to be able to trust that scribe to literally translate what is on the page and not make up his own definitions because he's had a bad day. You know?
Yeah, that's been studied though, like the like decrees and stuff and all that. That's been fairly safely translated and all that. So
but we only know what they're telling us is written on there. How do we know it isn't why did the chicken cross the road? You know?
Did you know that Spanish, French, Spanish, French, German, English, all of the European languages came from Indo-European, an unknown Indo-European language.
Yeah.
They're all related linguistically. They can trace them back to just the halfway point between Asia proper and where Eastern Europe starts. It can all be traced to that a little area where, I mean, it was basic. You could say it's Russia, Southern Russia, you could say, but back then, whatever it was called, it can all be traced to that area.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's boring for most folks, but that kind of thing is still fascinating to me because I'm a word nerd. I like play on words. I like the history of the language, the change of the language, the changes that have happened over time, and just, you know, all around. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a fella in the UK who has a YouTube channel, and he speaks Old English, which is very Germanic. And the most recent video of his that I saw was he had it was a 4-panel live stream that he had recorded, and it was him, a guy from America, a guy from Australia, and a guy from Poland. And he would say a sentence in Old English and see if these people could pick out what he was saying. And the guy who was from Poland was more accurate and got more sentences right than the Australian or the American, because there were certain words that were just similar enough to Polish that he could get the gist of the sentence. And maybe he couldn't understand each and every word, but he could understand the idea behind the sentence and come up with the meaning, which was odd to me, because I didn't think Polish had anything to do with any kind of a Germanic language. But yeah, English is a polyglot, man.
They do. They all have to do with each other, even though it's not obviously apparent. But I saw a video that went into it very in depth. It was actually a linguistics professor, and they try to trace the root of all European, because it's all branches. There's actually tree maps of the languages, and you'll have the Romantic languages, which we know
Right.
are the Portuguese and the Spanish and the French, Italian, and there's is it Romanian? I think Romanian as well. So there's that branch of people, languages, which infers people, but we're talking linguistics. And then you have the Germanic.
Right.
And then you'll have the English, and you'll have English, the Germans themselves. Oh, I'm sorry, the French were. So in the Germanic, you have the English, the German, and then you have, I think it was Dutch. You have all these variations that
Dutch, Yiddish, right?
No, not Yiddish at that point in this tree. I didn't see, but yeah, I could see how. And then they had the Slavic, and then the Rus. Which are the
Kievan Rus, yeah.
And you have and so you can see the branches and stuff. And there was a root, and some words, although we pronounce them different, have the same meaning in all languages. Right. So it's an interesting, boring to a lot of people, but because I'm kind of a nerd for those things, I mean, it was interesting to me. But anyway, going to the final one I wanted to mention of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot we were doing that. Like I said, this is interesting to me. But what do you get when you team up with a guy who studied English?
And a guy that loves studying all this whole ancient history and all that. If Texas were its own country, it would have the 10th largest GDP in the world.
I'm all for it. If they want to secede from the nation, I'm all for it, because they can do things for our side that we can't do as a big old country.
It could be its independent. I think most of the states could probably handle that.
Well, we were supposed to all be more or less sovereign states with a central government, but sovereign in our own affairs. And Texas was its own nation for many years.
Yeah.
So, but what can I say? Then we're getting political because we passed the 17th Amendment, which I think needs to be repealed. And it just basically took all the power away from the states. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, since you brought up that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention anything within at least as a bookmark. And I guess I'll be brief and stuff. I don't want to. The whole craziness that's been going on here, and I know we're all aware of it because it's like one of the biggest things we've seen. I just want to, my little statement is that the wanton destruction of people and their things and their persons is disgusting. And to me, and there's no excuse, and to me, this whole thing is just unacceptable as far as the concept of wanting the concept of owning the sweat of your labor the things there that you build with your hands, or through your work, or through contract, your life, um, your family's life. You have a right to be secure in them and secure them,
Mhm.
because without that, you know, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, minus ideologies, and you know, everybody's a great thinker and everybody's a brilliant mind. I always think of America, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll say it publicly. My belief in America, my basic root, is the concept of, it could be a family out in the middle of the country, open land, and they build a little fence and they have their little shack and they defend it. And you can have intelligent people coming by, quite reasonable human beings, wearing suits and ties and funny 1800s little hats, whatever, and come to the door and they say, "We're here to help you. We've got this great idea for you and we'd like to buy your." And the idea of the man, in his maybe in his ignorance, but simply maybe to his folly, because it could be an economic great thing, maybe to his folly, but the freedom and ability for that individual with what is his to say, "Get out of my yard, big city boy.
Yep.
We don't want none of that." "But sir, you don't understand, and so, in other words, I don't have the right to think that I can think better for you, for what's yours and what's in your best interest. And if I'm your friend, for whatever that's worth, at worst case scenario, I can't twist your arm because I think what's better for you, but I can tell you, "Hey man, listen, hey bud, but that's as far as I'm morally able to take it."
Yeah.
The idea, last bit I'll say, the idea and arrogance, these are the two things that I cannot abide by, is arrogance, rightly or wrongly. Worse if it's wrongly placed arrogance. If it's rightly placed arrogance, you can say, "Well, he's got the facts right." But arrogance, and we're all culpable because we're human, and there's but a consistent, arrogance is a horrible thing to have. And the other thing is, you know, is that very horrible personality trait of envy of what others may have, whatever that might be. Those are not good. And so those things, I think, lead to a lot of bad things.
Well, we've set that up in our society, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, based on, I mean, we were talking about it earlier. We have to have it now, instant gratification. There's no such thing as sacrifice anymore. People don't do without, they refuse to do without, whether they can afford it or not. They just refuse to do without. I mean, I keep going back to it, but we both know folks who make minimum wage who have to have the new iPhone. And there's just no sense in it. There's none. But a certain faction, a certain percentage of people are always willing to beg, borrow, and steal to get it because they think it makes them a more complete person. It doesn't. It makes you more shallow and superficial. Other than a gift, other than a present somebody has given you. And to me, there's a difference. Can you think of anything you've received for free that was worth a ding dong? I can't. There's a reason some things are free, and there's a reason some things are worth working for. And yes, you have the right to every the rewards of the
Sweat of
sweat
your
off your brow.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I think we all have a lot of thinking to do. about a number of things, without getting up on a soapbox or anything. I've preached it all before. Keep your hands to yourself, leave other people's things alone, be nice to one another, mind your own business. And, if that means you have to do without something for a little while, so be it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I really don't have a lot to add to that discussion. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I don't know what more I could say.
oh, sure you do. Oh, sure you do. But here's the thing. But here's the thing. I kind of wanted to, and we're being quite palatable. But the truth of the matter is that I do not like bullies.
Yeah.
And if it means a officer bullying someone, if it means a person taking advantage of another person, if it means someone breaking into another, it means stealing from another, if it means abusing on someone weaker, if it means any of those things, I am not your fan. If it means condoning it, I am not your fan. I'm just going to be perfectly honest because we only live once, you know. I believe in the dignity of human beings. And, that idea of busting a lady upside the head with a 2x4 in front of her business, and she's like a little thing like that, and you're busting her head, you're a scumbag. I'm just going to say it. I want it for the record. I don't give a crap. You're a scumbag, and all of you are, that do that kind of stuff to hurt an innocent life regardless. And that goes for all innocent lives, and I'm not trying to make a slogan of it, but it's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
No, you're absolutely right, because there's no regard for anybody else. I mean, think about that. You're not even just talking about the physical. The physical is bad. The physical is horrendous. I mean, there's nothing more horrendous than the physical.
Yeah.
But take a couple of steps back from that. I mean, every business that's out of business now, that took out jobs. That took after the Corona thing, and I hesitate to say after the Corona thing, because, hey, people, we're still in the middle of it.
That's true.
We're still in the middle of it. That's not over with. But I mean, some businesses were just starting to come back. Mm-hmm. They were just getting back to work. And now those places are gone. So that means there's somebody out there right now. There's a lot of people out there right now that aren't going to make the rent on the 1st of July because they don't have a job to go to now. So enjoy that flat screen, because your neighbor is going to be moving out soon because they can't pay the rent because they worked in that store.
The amount of justification also that I've seen across the socials of justification or a sweep under the rug, let's say, of actions taken because in the name of change. I just ethically think to myself, if you're okay in the name of the ends justify the means, and you're seeing, oh, well, yeah, sure, they're destroying half of California, or oh, sure, they're destroying Minneapolis, or sure, but guess what? This has to be corrected. I wonder, these bold revolutionaries, if they, and this is not gonna, they'll never, a person won't, because a person so arrogant will not admit to a fault because of the arrogance, and they know it. Mm-hmm. And I know they know it. You're okay with that random act of destruction and violence for somebody else's property in such a far distant area from where something else occurred, but you're saying, well, we gotta ends justify the means. Well, I wonder, and I know the answer, if you'd be okay, you that justify it, driving your car, if they come and take you, pull you out, beat you upside the head, and while they're doing it, plus busting your car and maybe flaming up your house, in your mind, you that justify are saying to yourself, This is for the good of. No, you're not. This is for the good of everybody, and I'm just gonna have to take my hits because it's ends justify them. No, it only justifies the ends and the means when it's not your butt on the line.
That's
You're
right.
full of crap, and I'm leaving that for those people that are justifying what's going on, so they know it and act accordingly. Because now you know how I think of you. You're not worth a dime, my opinion. And so things like that. I don't give a crap. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
And the cop that did that, you don't kill a person. We talked about that before this all blew up, actually. So we talked and we both agreed, and you can go back into our Wayback Machine, which is trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And we have that Wayback Machine there, and you can click it and you can check out the things we've said so it can sort of jive or not. And we sure would like your opinions, so you could leave us a little message if you think you like what you are hearing, if you want us to touch on certain topics. But we also do have
a website.
That's right.
It's my turn to screw up because you were talking about the website. But just as an aside, I got to say that's probably one of the most interesting segues I have ever witnessed in my life. Dude, I kneel to the master.
Because you know what? Yeah, have you ever seen like the funnel effect? You're on some sort of like speeder through the water and stuff, jet ski, and the the water is getting shallow, the river is getting closing in on you. I'm trying to find a way out. I found an inlet and I took a left.
Because you went from romping and stomping, and I almost believed it. I almost thought you were serious. Yeah, no.
Well, I kind of was. I kind of was, but
okay. So let me straighten it up and see if I can turn it around and kind of back the truck up. Beep beep beep. All right, here we go. You let in with. We also have a.
We
Facebook
also
page. we did it to each other. We also have a Facebook page. Trampled Underfoot Podcast over on Facebook. Come on over. Give us some ideas for some shows. I had a little chat with one of our regulars in somebody else's chat on their live stream. And he said, hey, Mark, you guys should do a podcast about this. And I'm like, that is just the kind of feedback we want over on our Facebook page. So we can run it past other people and see what they think. So I don't even remember what it was, to be honest with you. But make that suggestion over on our Facebook page. Go over to Facebook and look for Trampled Underfoot Podcast. And you can give us show suggestions. You got a topic you want to hear us talk about? You got a topic you want us to finally shut the heck up about because you're tired of hearing it? We'll take that in advisement, but that's about it. If you got, give us a like. Let us know how we're doing. Are we good? Are we bad? Are we indifferent? Are you falling asleep in your chair? Not you, Steve.
Talking about Steve, we're also sponsored by Harneal Media. That's Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. And they create websites as well as web stores for you. And it's the best prices in town. So you could go check it out. You get a personalized service as well. So if you need to build a website with items up there that you sell, go ahead and talk to Steve at harnealmedia.com.
That's right. He's the man. He'll do as much or as little as you want. If you want him to run the whole thing, okay. You want to run everything, okay. He's the guy that you need to talk to. He'll help you set up merch. You want to make t-shirts. You want to make baseball caps. You want to make these cool looking masks and gaiters and everything everybody's been profiling in here nowadays. He's your guy. He'll hook you right up. harnealmedia.com.
Back when I was in elementary school, there was one incident that happened that I've mentioned before, but I think it kind of blends in and maybe something comes of it. But we were leaving school, and there was this kid, one of the kids. I never talked to him, but you'd see them in the hallway, a bunch of kids, and you just say hi, and you form little distant bonds, close bonds, and you know how it is. Humans, we're social creatures, and you might not talk with a person, but you wave them and stuff. And well, there's this one kid came from behind. He wasn't looking, and he took his bag, his backpack, and the kid swung the backpack, which he had put glass bottle in, and he smashed it on this other kid's head.
Man.
And for no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because this kid was just trash.
Mm-hmm.
So, mind you, the layout of the story, a guy I'd waved that and stuff that had done nothing. A guy comes randomly and hits him in the head, and I came up to the guy, and the other kid that did that with the backpack with the bottle ran away. Sound familiar? And I looked at the guy and turned him around, and he looked at me, was like dazed, and all of a sudden from his head, blood started pouring down the front of his head. And I said, dude, are you okay? I mean, what? I'm a kid too. All I knew is that you just hurt this guy. And I'm like, are you okay? And blood was gushing down his head. And he couldn't even react, but I held him, and more kids started coming up to help him. Meanwhile, the guy with the bag and the bottle ran away. Mm-hmm. Does that sound familiar? If randomly, no matter who you hurt, how can anybody in their right mind not know who's the bad guy?
Yeah.
And I am amazed at adults that can't do math like that. I'm bad at math, but I'm pretty freaking good at knowing to keep my hands to myself and not hurt others, nor justify when I see others do it. Mm-hmm. I am really indignant about a very basic thing. Mm-hmm. Very indignant. Yeah. I mean, that's one example in a little, but maybe they don't get it. But that's a simple little example within as kids, where same injustice, ethically speaking, unrelated, but apparently, what I've seen, I have lost a lot of faith in my fellow citizens, to be honest with you.
Well, it's what we've been teaching. We've been teaching you get your way when you throw a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
We've been teaching that showing your feelings is a good thing and it's healthy, and that there's no consequence. There is no discipline. So our own chickens are coming back to roost because we have raised. I mean, let's think about this. Let's be honest here. Everybody out there doing exactly what you're talking about, we raised them to be that way.
Yeah.
So we have nobody to blame but ourselves. Now, we have others to blame for certain specific situations. But the overall in general reaction, they believe, because they were taught, that this is how you handle it. You throw a temper tantrum. This is how you get your way. Because for the first 20 years of their lives, that's what they did.
Yeah. Now,
you were never told no. You got what you wanted. I can break a window and take a talking to. If I broke somebody's window when I was a kid, oh boy, there were immediate negative consequences.
Yeah.
And the easiest of which was I paid for the window,
Right.
whether it was an accident or not. Now, I never intentionally broke anybody's window. But
Now imagine, imagine you come in after your day of looting with a bag full of goodies, and your son, daughter, and wife are sitting there, and hey, daddy, and oh, daddy brought home some good stuff. We've got TVs, we've got this. Where'd you get it, daddy? I nicked it off of the store in frickin', El Paso and whatnot. Imagine what you're teaching without even having to utter a word to your kids, and what they are going to represent in their school after the fact, and what they're going to grow up believing is okay and not okay.
Well,
It's just disgusting.
you're asking for thought, and that's not authorized. You're asking for thought in regard to somebody other than themselves, and that's just not how things work these days. Dang, I'm beginning to think you're older than me. You know,
I mean,
I just don't know anymore, man. In some ways, nothing surprises me, but I know I'm old and cynical. So, but I've witnessed this before. I was too young to remember the Watts riots in the early 1960s. I believe that was 65 or 66. So that would have made me 4 or 5 years old. But the Berkeley riots happened right up the road from me when I was 8 or 9. And we've seen it happen time and time again. But it's gotten worse as time progresses. I mean, there are certain cities in this country where this happens if their football team loses a game or when their basketball team wins a game. They'll do the same thing.
right.
You know?
Well,
So,
but this is like,
oh yeah, I know. I get it. I understand that. But we have set it up in our society where, I'll say it again, there is no discipline at all. So folks think this is how you get your way. And let's make no mistake, when they say justice, they mean my way. I get my way. That's the true definition. Now I'm not talking about the innocent guy who was killed. I'm not talking about that family. I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about these lowlifes destroying buildings and lives, screaming justice. They don't even know what they're screaming about.
Well, I mean, like I said, I saw so much destruction. A lady, like a little lady,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure she can defend herself, but there were 2 guys with 2x4s making her mud in front of her store, saying, "Just stay away."
And that's supposed to make me support your cause. It
Right.
doesn't. You know what it does is it turns people against your cause. It closes ears. It makes people turn their back. So you're your own worst enemy.
Now, there was one brave hero that shouldn't have, because he was an older guy. They were stuck in traffic somewhere, probably Santa Monica. I don't remember exactly. Santa Monica, probably. Who knows? And he got out of his car because they were beating on another car, and there were people in there, frightened. Who knows if there's kids in there? Even if there's not, you have no business endangering another human being because you're having a little fit. And the guy said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." And the guy said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa." He turned around and started beating on him. And then others came and they surrounded him and literally were kicking him into the pavement. An older guy, probably in his mid to late 50s, maybe 60s, and he's freaking being pounded because they're having their little hissy fit. No excuse. No excuse.
No. You are the slime. You are the slime. Yeah.
And there's countless of stuff like that. So after seeing all that, well, I really can't find um a silver lining other than what you just said. They will pay because they will pay in one way or the other because, well, they do have Nike shoes at home now, but other than that, people, I don't
It all
know that
comes around. It all comes around. I do believe in karma. It all
I
comes around.
I don't believe that most human beings, that I can tell you, um, because if it were so, we would have gone up in flames, literally, like just.
Years ago, yeah.
But I believe most human beings understand when they see someone vulnerable that this is a vulnerable person. You
Mhm.
don't take advantage of them. I think that most human beings agree with that notion because we would have, like you were just saying, have gone to
Yeah.
crap a long time ago, let's say.
Mhm.
But there sure is a lot of wicked,
Mhm.
no
Well,
counts out there. So
riots only serve to condemn the cause that you're claiming to support. That's all they've ever done. They condemn the cause you're claiming to support. Everything that you're screaming about is falling on deaf ears.
yeah. Yeah, and likewise, like Jim said, do not paint good cops with the same brush as a few bad ones. That's also part of the. We can't. I believe that the since I don't know
Mhm.
anybody in depth what they're thinking in their minds, I can only react to their actions,
Mhm.
and I have to treat them according to that, and distance and get closer depending on what I see is a threat or not threat, friendly or not friendly. I mean, there's visual cues that we've been given since primordial, since freaking caveman times, and so maybe that's the problem. These people have evolved certain things from because there are certain things you want to evolve into,
Well,
which is a bit more of personal respect. But just to say this bit, you have to judge people, or you don't have to. Go ahead and do what you want to do. Not you, Mark. I'm just saying to the people at large. But since I can't know everybody's, I have to judge by action. You
mhm.
judge people individually,
Mhm.
how much you can get on with it in life with, and who to stay the heck away. You have to judge people on an individual basis, concerning the way they comport themselves.
Right. And let's make no mistake. I mean, I know that there's going to be people out there that say, well, you're not supposed to judge other people. Baloney. Judgment is what keeps you from picking up the hitchhiker wearing a hockey mask, carrying a sledgehammer in one hand and a chainsaw in the other.
Yeah.
You judge people every day. Don't you dare tell me to be non-judgmental.
Well,
We
and there's
all judge every day.
well, true, and there's a difference between judging whether to or not associate or whatever
Mhm.
with the judgment. These people are saying that we just sentenced your ass to the 2x4 into the. So there is, so yeah, you can have your personal judgment and you, with your freedom, conduct yourself away from these. But the these people,
Well,
boy,
we said it last week. I think we have all always known that there was just a certain number of just plain bad people. There are just some bad people out there. But until we started recording everything with cameras, I don't think anybody realized just how many there were.
yes,
And we've seen that on parade over the
yes,
past week.
yes. There's a lot of the Mark.
And
That's one thing. There's a lot of people. They
and
don't care.
and if anything needs to change, that's what needs to change.
I I'm thinking all sorts of things right now, and
Yeah, I think we better land the plane before we go overboard. Because there's only one parachute.
okay, and it's mine, damn it.
And it's also your edit, so it's going to be a fun one.
I mean, I think look, if what we've been saying is unreasonable to a certain amount of people,
Let us know.
you know, no, see, I was going to say something a little bit. See,
Go ahead. Go
you're,
ahead.
you're
I
very
can take it.
no, but you're on a more calm, place. It's just
I'm
the
old.
intellectual dishonesty that I've seen from a lot of people is concerning to me because truth doesn't matter to them.
No.
I just want to win.
Yeah.
We're not looking for the truth. We just want to win, and we're gonna make it so that they're so full of crap. I'm sorry, but to be honest with you, um, I don't like that. I don't. That's not my rules. I
Yeah.
prefer to be corrected through honesty and look at this point of view, man. Oh, but how about this? And work at it. Sure, I can be a little bit, hey, I'm going to be fighting, but intellectually, maybe I'm blocked and I don't know something, and then that's fine. But,
Uh-huh.
but, oh yeah. Let's beat the old women. Let's crush the kids. Let's destroy the. No, man. So I don't. These people, they're just. I'm sorry.
No, but
Parachute.
But I was serious about that as well. If there was something incendiary that you thought we said, let us know. I don't think we did. I think our response to all this junk, and believe me, we're censoring ourselves here. You know,
big time.
This is
big time.
Looking at everything that has gone on, I don't think there's anything either of us could say that could be incendiary, because it's already happened. You cannot argue that woman deserved to be beaten like that. You cannot argue that man deserved to be beaten like that. And don't come at me with moral relativism. Well, did that guy deserve to? No, he didn't. And it's a stupid question, so don't bother asking.
Yes.
But you don't make things better by killing more people. So I don't know. That's all I got.
I agreed with all that and then some. So listen, folks, we're in a crazy sort of like back-to-back what the heck year. And not to mention, we had a space launch, and somebody actually made it to the frickin' space station, and the rocket actually went back and landed on a floating pad, which is a whole different can of worms, because when it landed, the cameras shut off before we see it land, and then the cameras come back on, and it's sitting there. And the conspiracy theories have just floodgated all out. So all this has happened: the space thing, the corona, the rioting, and a whole slew of there was UFOs spotted the other day.
I'm waiting for Godzilla and the flying monkeys, and I'm taking bets on who's going to be first, which is going to arrive first. Don't forget the murder hornets. Good God, don't forget the murder hornets.
Dude, it's been insane, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but it's like, what the heck is... And people are going berserk, dude.
I'm beginning to wonder if maybe Tide Pods came out in raspberry flavor, and that's what this is. They're on a new level of Tide Pod, and everybody's just partaking, and I don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, final thought: these people that are so intellectual and excuse the Ryan, I think you're all a bunch of fools, and I'm containing myself. You're all a bunch of fools. So I'll catch you guys next time. On behalf of Mark Lindsay and me, Eloy Escagedo, we thank you for checking it out. Long live America. And our brothers up to the north and the south as well. Canada, all of us. Live long and prosper. Don't kill each other. Peace.